We finally have an answer to a question I get asked all the time. How often should you really be having sex? I'm Dr. Fiona Grey, sexologist and men's health expert. And until recently, there wasn't a clear evidence-based answer. But now, new research is starting to give us some important insights. We've long known that sexual activity provides health benefits. Studies have shown that having sex boosts your mood, creates more positive feelings about life, and can even lift your energy and outlook the very next day. People who are sexually active more often also tend to report less anxiety, lower rates of depression, and better overall health outcomes compared to those who are less active. But here's the real question. How much sex is enough to see these benefits? A large study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine looked at data from over 15,000 adults in the United States. The researchers wanted to see how sexual frequency, in other words, how often people had sex, related to health and even risk of death. They used data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, a nationally representative survey that collects health information from Americans. Starting in 2005, participants were asked how often they had vaginal or anal sex in the past 12 months. Answers ranged from never to 365 times a year or more. The researchers then followed these participants for an average of 6 years, tracking who passed away and what they died from. This allowed them to study whether sexual frequency was linked to mortality, both overall death and deaths from specific causes like heart disease or cancer. Here's what they found. Between 2005 and 2016, about 72% of adults aged 20 to 59 reported having sex at least once a month. About 36% reported having sex weekly. But the really interesting part is what happened when they looked at health outcomes. Participants who reported having sex 52 or more times per year, essentially once a week or more, had a significantly lower risk of death compared to those who reported having sex less than once a year. Specifically, they had a 49% lower risk of dying from any cause and a 69% lower risk of dying from cancer. Even men and women who reported having sex just a few times a year, between 2 and 51 times, still had a 36% lower risk of death compared to those who reported almost no sexual activity. Another study took this even further. Researchers from Walden University, publishing in the Journal of Psychosexual Health, used the same database and looked specifically at the relationship between sexual frequency, depression, and overall mortality. They analyzed data from more than 14,500 adults who self-reported their sexual activity over the past year. They also measured depression levels using a standardized questionnaire called the PHQ-9, and then tracked deaths in the years that followed. The results were striking. For women, lower sexual frequency, defined as less than once per week, was linked to a 70% higher risk of dying during the study period compared to women who were sexually active once a week or more. And this was true even after adjusting for other factors like age, obesity, and existing health conditions. But here's where it gets even more interesting. When they looked at people with depression, the combination of depression and low sexual activity had an almost compounding effect. Those with both depression and low sexual frequency had nearly a 200% higher risk of dying compared to those with depression alone. On the flip side, participants who were depressed but still had a healthy sex life, once a week or more, had no significantly higher risk of death compared to people without depression. In other words, sex itself seemed to provide a protective effect, even in the presence of mental health challenges like depression. Now, of course, we can't say that sex directly causes people to live longer. These studies rely on self-reported data, which has limitations. But the evidence does suggest that sexual activity may be an important marker, and potentially a contributor, to overall health and longevity. So why might sex be protective for health? First, sex has cardiovascular benefits. It supports healthy circulation, lowers heart rate variability, and helps regulate blood pressure. It also triggers the release of feel-good hormones like endorphins, dopamine, and oxytocin, which improve mood and create a powerful sense of connection. That emotional connection is just as important as the physical effects. Intimacy, closeness, and bonding with a partner contribute to psychological well-being and help buffer against stress. And we know stress is a huge factor in heart disease, immune function, and overall mortality. Now let's put this all together. The research is not suggesting that if you're having less sex, you should suddenly pressure yourself into having more. That's not the point. What these studies highlight is that intimacy matters, connection matters. Sexual activity, when it's safe, consensual, and pleasurable, appears to be linked to longer life, lower rates of depression, and better overall health. And this makes sense. For many couples, intimacy isn't always spontaneous, especially with age, stress, or medical issues in the mix. But prioritizing it, making space for closeness, touch, and sexual connection, clearly brings benefits that go far beyond the bedroom. So if you're fortunate enough to be in a relationship, take care of your sexual health. Talk openly with your partner. Make intimacy a priority, even when life is busy. Because it's not just about enjoyment. The science shows it may be one of the keys to health and longevity. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more evidence-based advice on men's health and intimacy. And before I close, I want to share one more important piece. Many men ask me what they can do to improve sexual function and maintain intimacy as they age. And while lifestyle factors like exercise, sleep, and diet are crucial, supplements can provide additional support. That's why I recommend two carefully selected, science-backed options. You'll find links to both in the pinned comment and video description below. For men who want a moderate natural boost, I recommend organic watermelon extract, rich in L-Citrulline. It increases nitric oxide, improves circulation, and supports firmer, more reliable erections. But if you're ready for a bigger transformation, not just circulation, but also testosterone, stamina, libido, and prostate health, I recommend the advanced formula. It combines icariin, horny goatweed, to support hardness, stamina, and blood flow, tongkat to boost testosterone and sexual drive, fenugreek, to increase libido, energy, and orgasm intensity, nettle root for hormone balance and prostate health, plus citrulline for nitric oxide and vascular support. Together, these ingredients target every aspect of male performance: blood flow, hormones, stamina, desire, and prostate health. So if you're ready to take action, choose the option that fits your goals. The links are below. Take care of your health, your intimacy, and your relationships. Because sex and connection are not just about pleasure. They're about longevity, confidence, and living fully at every stage of life.